Welcome to the Infosys Healthcare and Life Sciences Perspectives, the podcast and video interview series with thought leaders.
Hi, Frank. Nice to actually have you on the InfiTV kind of chat. This is Roshan Shetty. I head the Life Sciences and Healthcare business for Infosys across Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Frank, if you can introduce yourself.
Hi, Roshan. It's a pleasure to be here. Yes, Frank Gulitz. I'm the CIO of Mobile Health AG here in Zurich, and we are producing a platform who are helping cancer patients to manage their therapy and their therapy outcomes.
Wonderful, Frank. Happy to actually have you in this conversation. I think we have been hit by some unprecedented kind of pandemic situation that COVID-19 has thrown across. And it has actually changed the entire paradigm of actually healthcare industry. What is your perspective on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's an outstanding situation, and I think healthcare has needed to react it very fast. Many good applications came up to COVID. I think the major issue which we're facing is that all this good work will be phasing down because the cultural change in the clinic treatment as well as out clinic treatment will still take some time. But very impressive was also that government was reacting very fast to use new medias and new applications to track the COVID-19. Unfortunately, as you see in many publications, the standardization of the data which we're gathering right now to COVID-19 is very limited. So we will have a lot of data where data scientists have to do a lot of work to get this been done and use it for the future. But I think it will have a tremendous impact and it will stay. But the hype about the apps which are right now out there will unfortunately phase down because the culture in the caretaking is not been there till now.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you in terms of actually the response from the government authorities as well as the healthcare industry in terms of grappling with this pandemic situation. And it's developing every day, right? Every day, new insights are actually being picked up. New kind of thought process is actually kind of coming to bear. So it's an ever-changing dynamic situation, I think. And that brings me to the next question that I actually have for you. That is, this new normal, if we can call it actually as new normal, has really been very dynamic for the entire healthcare industry and all the stakeholders involved in the healthcare industry, whether it is actually the pharma companies, whether it is the payers, whether it is actually care providers, whether it is the consumers themselves, the patients themselves. What is your take on this new normal across the entire value chain?
Oh, that is a very interesting question. I think quality of care came very much right now in front of everything. I mean, we know that we took under normal conditions always a quick view to our doctor and have a quick checkup. I think that is right now being very much going down because people think about, should I expose myself? Should I not expose myself? And if you saw that right now, there was a very interesting study. It's around the diagnosis of new sicknesses is a backlog right now of around 40% against what was before the pandemic. So I think one of the predictive changes which we will see right now is the tele-diagnose, where we overcome in the COVID-19 quite well the caretaking process, and we overcome also quite well still the insurances, the payment processes, and the treatment processes. But I think the after treatment process was lacking a lot, and I think the diagnosis process is the biggest one, which we will see right now, big changes, because we know it from a technology perspective, IoT is far away right now in the telemedicine. Just only the standard to exchange information between a hospital information system and a praxis information system to labs, to insurers. Yes, we know we have HL7 and we know we have FIRE, but the standard is far away from a standard. I mean, I came from the banking before, and it reminds me to 20 years ago where you wanted to do an international money transfer. That was not a standard. Now it is just a click away, and it's been there. So I think that breaks will go massively through, and it will be right now also seeing the empowerment for the patients coming up, that the patients will make very wise decisions when to go, where to go, and what to go. And will also change the prediction about who owns the data. I mean, I believe the health industry is pretty much like any other industry, is they are sitting on the gold of the data. But the patients recognize right now, if I have my data in my hand, I can manage myself much better. I can go into treatments and go into diagnosis, even via telediagnosis, without that I have to expose myself to the COVID-19 or to any other risk which I see before. So I think that will be tremendously been changing. And the predicament about the quality of care for the patients will come in the front. And the payment around quality of care, as you see right now with the S3 initiatives in England and the NHS, which you can see right now with the DIGA, where you can prescribe apps for your medical health, and with a VITH here in Swiss, where the hospitals get been paid by the quality of the treatments and the quality of care, is three massive signals which will spread throughout the world, that this will come, and it will all come about the patient empowerment and the quality of care. How the own players in the ecosystem, from the insurance to the caregivers, will adapt to this will be taking some painful disruptions, I think, which we are still looking right now in the market who has the breadth and the depth to disruptive, like Lemonade or Oscar did for the insurance business, and use-based pricing came up into the area. I think by the regulations which you have right now, this industry is very much protected in the moment, but sooner or later, a strong ecosystem about disruptor will come, and it will be quite a little bit an earthquake.
So I think very well said. A very, very kind of detailed kind of perspective on the entire value chain and how the disruption is actually going to happen, which will bring also patient care to a new kind of a paradigm. Frank, if we now pivot towards technology, we have always actually seen technology being a key player in the healthcare industry. We have seen it more in the spaces like the triaging of actually the cases at the initial, and to give some inputs to the physicians or the clinicians. And then we actually have seen it play an important role in med devices, where technology has actually been in the forefront in helping the med devices manufacturing. With the pandemic situation and the surprise elements that actually have posed in terms of people working completely remote, what do you see the play of technology in terms of actually remote care management or telehealth and wellness is actually becoming a very important topic in all organizations. So how do you see the confluence of technology along with the regulatory kind of requirements that are actually there, right, through all the regulators? How do you see kind of a confluence of this happening?
Yeah, technology over Internet of Things as well as wearable devices will change tremendously the whole area about managing your health, as well as managing your diagnosis and managing your sicknesses. I think the biggest problem which we have right now, and honestly, we are looking for many partners right now around this, is that you have to have the breadth to have a digital device certified. And I think that area about the digital certification, CE certification, MDD, MDR certification, is quite a tremendous burden for something which is not an invasive instrument, I have to say. On the other hand, I have to say the whole ecosystem will only work when you have high quality standardized data. So when we're looking right now into predictions around health through wealth and wellness, through historical medical records, as well as life behaviors, as well as treatments, the problem is to put this all together to get the right output for the physicians as well as for the patients or any other caregivers like social caregivers, elderly caregivers behind it. It is tremendously important that we are starting to find really the right standard to exchange the data between each other for the better good of the patients. This one will enable us to create in the technology right now predictions which we could never think before, which the pharma is striving for this with the flat iron initiatives here in the Swiss, where the medical device maker is trying to get there. But on the other hand, you see that even Apple is not going there to get his Apple Watch being CE certified because the effort to maintain this kind of certification is just tremendously too high. I think the regulator needs to come a little bit down with the areas which we are gathering data, and we're gathering data in a high standardized area, which are not invasive gathering of data, should be made more easy. The whole exchange of data, which we have here with the electronic patient dossier in the Swiss, where you can decide as a patient who you give your data to for which kind of purpose, is, I think, a very strong thing which we need to do. And only then technology can make an impact, because it is all about the data. It's like you have said before, medical devices always been enhanced. Why it has been enhanced? To get the accuracy of the diagnosis being better, to get the cost for the diagnosis being better, all for the goodness for the patient, right? And the problem, it is not for the goodness of the patient, but we all know that medical industry is also an industry. There is a P&L behind it, right? And the problem is, where will the P&L go? As I said before, the silos of data will be disrupted sooner or later. When the hurdle would be lowered around exchanging data in a standardized manner throughout very innovative companies, this industry could gain a lot. This discussion, we know it will take a while, but I'm really looking for an ecosystem of disruptive thinkers in the health system which will cooperate with each other. I have to also say I'm coming from another industry before. I come from a car manufacturing industry. Then I was been in the bank, I was been in insurance, I was in the consultants industry. The thing is, the dynamic of exchanging innovative ideas in the medical health area is very limited. If you're looking right now into any kind of startup gatherings and startup meetings, this is all about financials, honestly. It is heavily financials. The area of resources, the area of health is a very low acting community, honestly. And I think if you would change this, then the small mass could make the big avalanche rolling. Right? But if we are all struggling by ourselves, then it would not help. And this is where Infosys can also help, because you have a wide spread throughout disrupting people like us, as well as big industry players.
So I do actually take your point, but I also actually see an interesting change that is happening. I see a lot of private equity firms now investing in healthcare related kind of solutions, which used to be kind of heavily dominated by the financial services, where they used to kind of look at a lot of investments. So I see that actually shift happening, which is a welcome change. But I do take your point in terms of there will be disruptors, but the disruptors will be actually very selective, and they will be actually coming in with a view in terms of all the challenges that they will be kind of facing. And I think with the might of organizations like Apple and all, as you articulated, they could have actually come into the space very easily, but they're taking a very cautious kind of an approach, because they need to kind of be under the regulators kind of a check and balance once they actually kind of come into that space. So I do see your perspective on that. That brings me to actually a point where I think if you look at it from a patient's perspective, today the patients are actually going to the healthcare value chain in order to get certain treatment. Now, sometimes the treatment is actually bang on, sometimes it is actually not, but they actually spend the money either ways, in terms of actually availing that. And I see the change in terms of the thinking moving more towards the value-based care. Now, with the advent of this actually coming, again, going back to the entire value chain, if you look at it from the perspective of the pharma companies, the payers, the caregivers, the industry is going to actually kind of see a dynamic change happening out here. What is your take on the value-based care?
Yeah, you see that this is our business where we're in, Roshan. We're making patient-reported outcome.
Yeah.
That means we are there where the people who has to decide if the care is good or not are on the trigger of everything, which is the patient itself. So this is what we try to enable. We try to enable that the patient has a structured, standardized form to give immediately feedback to their treatments, to their diagnosis, to the caregivers. One effect is that it enables the caregivers to select and manage the therapy much better. But on the other hand, it will go in the long term into the area that you can benchmark quality of care. You can benchmark treatment decisions, and you can also enhance the suggestion of treatment decisions by a real online footprint around your diagnosis and your treatments of the person itself, who can judge on a standardized based eye to eye to the medical expert. The biggest problem right now, which has been there, is that you have two different worlds talking to each other. You have a medical professional who talks in a very different way around your feelings, your symptoms, your problems. And often you need a dictionary and an encyclopedia to understand what he's talking about.
Absolutely.
So, and that is where the problem is about the quality of care, honestly. Because let's see it in a cancer perspective. You're fighting around your life. So your quality of care is to survive. But how you survive with a tremendous side effects, with a tremendous impact of your quality of life, or you improve your quality of life during the treatment as well as the outcome of the treatment, that is where we all strive for. And I think this voice of the customers will become, of the patient, will become tremendously impactful, because with new generations coming into the ecosystems, the awareness around your collaboration, your input, and your influence around your output is tremendous. The challenge and the art between that is to bridge the languages between both parties. I think it's not only both parties, it's also the languages about the pharma industry. I mean, whoever was reading the prescription of your medicine, I mean, there are some people who can read this. But we know it's maybe 1 or 2% of the world. Make it clear what this medicine and the pharma product is doing to you. Making clear that the insurance is paying whatever you want to pay. If you see it right now in the cancer, you're going through the first treatment cycles and you're seeing that your tumor is not acting, right? It's not shrinking, it's not disappearing, it's stalling, or it's still growing. The amount of effort the physician needs to convince an insurer to move into the next possible outcome treatment is tremendous high. So if you can find the diagnosis and you can find the treatment, as well as you can see the real behavior and the real impact on the patient of the actual treatment, is a tremendous input to make this change happen. And we are talking here about 100,000 to 400,000 US dollar per treatment, right? When you need to change into another treatment. And this information for the insurer is very important, that he can either see the the medical facts, what has been there, but as well as the impact of the quality of life and the impact of around the symptoms of their patients to make the decision for better good of the patients.
So, in summary, from what you mentioned, I do get the point that your take is that the entire value chain is going to actually benefit from a value-based care, because you're going to have patients who are going to actually be much happier. You're going to have the payers who are actually going to know that they're paying for the actual care that is going to make a difference for their consumers or their clients. And the caregivers and the provider organizations will know exactly what they need to do, and they'll be much better in terms of their efficiency, as well as actually their centricity towards actually kind of getting the care given to the right people at the right time. So I think your take is that the value chain is going to benefit from it.
Definitely, it will. It will. I mean, you can make better decisions. You can have better output for the patients with much more efficiencies to make decisions. It will have also an impact around R&D and the cost and the value behind R&D in the future with the technology enablers which we're having right now in front of us. I think it will be a complete rethinking around the business models which have been there. I mean, insurance is parking money and try not to spend money. Pharma is spending money in R&D and trying to make an impact on the world to heal somebody, but they also wants to make profit behind this one. Let's make that very clear. Clinics are also being clinics who try to make a very efficient process in intake, triage, diagnosis, therapy, and after therapy. And this all will come into the area where the person who will be in the future spending the value for themselves, and I strongly believe the value for themselves will be the value of the patient. And that self-empowerment will start. Of course, till now you have your classic insurance policy, right? What can you do against this classic insurance policies? But if you will be 20, 30 years old right now, in our age, it will be hard to change the health insurance or our life insurance pieces. But decision about the 20, 30 years old people, they will look into this area. And I think there will be definitely a change how you select your physicians, how you're selecting your therapy, and what is the ones which you can cover in your insurances, and maybe also already self-enablement around what kind of medication you would choose in your area. Until now, there's very less educated knowledge out there for the patient to really make the decisions around what medications would be the best.
Wonderful. Frank, mobile health. Mobile health is pioneering in a new paradigm with the platform-based kind of solution that the Consilium Care platform that you have actually come up with. Can you tell us a bit more about what was the thought process behind coming up with a platform like Consilium Care? What is your vision? What do you want to kind of look forward in the next 2 to 3 years that the platform actually has entailed for itself?
Sure, I would love to do this. Yeah, I mean, we are already existing since 6 years, honestly, becoming strongly from an R&D background, from an oncology professor being founded. Honestly, it's all coming from the area that we recognized that the patient who is going under a cancer treatment has a tremendous need to document themselves around how they feel, what are the symptoms behind it, because the uncertainty about everything in a cancer treatment is very, very high. And patients are having a tremendous need to document themselves around what they are doing right now, how are they doing right now. So we have been started in this area to see if there's a collaboration model between these needs as well as the need on the physician side. And we found a very strong collaborations behind this one that the physician is very interested around the documentation of the patients. And we have proven that in a clinical trial around the benefits behind it. And then we started and see how we can help him even more. And then we came up with the idea that a patient will get an early alert if something from a symptom perspective is looking into an area that it doesn't look very well, and you should see your physician earlier than planned. So this was a tremendous step going forward. We have this right now being to be launched by mid of October here in the Swiss for the patients as well as for the clinics, to use this to enhance the treatment of the patients. We are planning then to roll it out in Germany in 1st of January under a prescription model in Germany. And we have set this platform on a very international basis. So we want to roll this out throughout Europe as well as US, and then we want to go into the Asia Pacific areas. And one of the midterm aim is to create the right data and data amounts behind it, to start with predictive analytics into oncologies, to optimize treatments against medications against symptoms, and on the longer term, even throughout the outcome of this one. If we have enough data, and we hope we will be there by end of next year, then we can start to offer the predictive analytics to the patients, to the pharma, to the insurance, as well as to the clinics. And then if the predictive analytics will work, then we will start the next big step around creating machine learning algorithms, which is then optimizing the predictions in a feedback loop throughout different countries. This is our aspiration, and we're having right now 3 terrific clinical trials behind us, and we saw tremendous impact on the patients as well as the caregiver community and the insurers. So we are looking, and we're very excited to go with Infosys and bring this thing onto the market, and helping a lot of cancer patients throughout the world to improve their outcome and their quality of life during the treatment.
Frank, thanks a lot for your inputs around the journey that mobile health has actually undertaken. From an Infosys perspective, we are really happy to be a part of this journey and to partner with you and the organization to make sure that the patients and the care system work very collaboratively to kind of add value to the patients. We are elated to kind of be a part of the entire journey that you have outlined over the years to bring more kind of capabilities onto the platform, and look forward for this interesting journey together and make the partnership bigger and better. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Roshan, and thank you for all your support with all your teams behind it. It's a pleasure to work with you guys, and looking very much forward to disrupt a little bit the health ecosystem together.